let me just start by asking you this question. Is everybody born with infinite potential?
Yes.
Everybody is born with infinite potential. But then have you noticed that something gets in the way of that infinite potential? I'd like to call that reality. Reality is what gets in the way of that infinite potential. So here you have this thought that you can do, be, have, experience anything that you want. Then life happens. And life seems to stop you, thwart you, challenge you, confront you, and ultimately cause you to not experience the things that you want to experience. But I don't know if you have noticed or not, but there are people who clearly do not care. And they bust right through reality, and they create their own reality. They don't live within the confines of the reality that everybody else lives in. If you look at Roger Bannister, for example, Roger Bannister lived in a world where it was physically impossible, and it was scientifically documented that human beings could not run a 4-minute mile. The prevailing science of the day basically said, forget about it, it's not going to happen. And here was a guy who said, I don't live like that, and busted that reality. And isn't it interesting that the moment he busted through that reality, hundreds and hundreds of people started to break the 4-minute mile. In fact, today we have kids who break the 4-minute mile all the time. You have someone like Bill Gates who says, I'm going to have a PC on every single person's desktop. Now, that was a bold statement, and yet that reality did not exist. I mean, back when he started, to even buy a computer was literally tens of thousands of dollars. And yet he declared, everyone will have one. Then comes along Mr. Steve Jobs, who says, not only is the internet and computing going to be available to everyone, but it's going to be done in such a way that nobody has to figure it out. Nobody has to learn anything. Nobody has to understand computers, and he completely changes the game. He puts the internet in your hands. He makes all of your data available to you anywhere in a beautiful, elegant device, and literally changes the world. And when he came about, he basically looked at Bill Gates and he says, I'm going to blow you out of the water. And Bill Gates said, yeah, right. And the world said, yeah, right. And, you know, almost going bankrupt several times, and literally being kicked out of his own company that he created, and ultimately creating, you know, a company that has more cash on hand than the U.S. government right now. That's pretty significant. And creating gadgets that probably every single person in this room has at least one of his gadgets, or Ron is holding up his iPad, or a gadget influenced by what he did. He broke reality. Now, what do these people have in common? Because as I look at my own life, I start to see for myself, you know, I have never believed in reality. I have never believed that what people told me was the truth. I've lived like there's some sham going on here. These rules, these ideas that people are trying to sell me on, they just can't be the truth. And it really started for me when I was about 9 years old. When I was 9 years old, I used to have these asthma attacks, and my mom would make these little makeshift asthma tents for me. So I'd be under the table, and she would put sheets over the top of the table, make a little bed underneath there, put a little light and a humidifier so that I could break up the stuff that was in my lungs. And I'd be laying there reading, and I don't read very fast or very well. I especially back then, I read about 1 word per minute or 1 word per second. You know, I was like, the dog went to, but later I realized that that reading cadence and the hum of the humidifier and the low light actually helped me to go into altered states. There were times in which I would be reading the book, and suddenly it felt like the book was 100 feet below me. That all of a sudden, boom, I had popped up into some other world, and it was the most amazing, unbelievable experience of my life. It was so delicious, so amazing. Just come on in, guys, and take a seat. So unbelievable that I literally have spent the rest of my life looking for that experience again. When I was a kid, I tried drugs. Didn't really work. I tried sex. Didn't really work. Tried to be popular. Didn't really work. Would stand on stage at MFO events and have 3,000 people going crazy, still feeling like I'm nothing and I'm alone. Still feeling hindered. Yet I saw people around me who were shattering their realities, and they were doing something that I thought was so interesting. As I was coaching people at the Mike Ferry organization, I started to see that there were people who create their own reality. They didn't wait for reality to tell them what to do. They created their own reality. Now, I began to think to myself, how on earth do you create your own reality like that? Because I seem to be thwarted and stuck. My reality seems to stop me from exhibiting and experiencing my infinite potential. And over the years, what I began to realize was that there was a system that people used, there was a way, a map that people used to express their infinite potential and break through reality and do whatever it is that they wanted to do. And that map is what I am taking you through in the mastermind. And it's what I've been taking, Rob and Debbie, and I've taken Kara through it, and who else is in my personal coaching? I took Maria through the beginnings of it in the personal coaching. But what it starts with is the fundamental misperception. When you were a kid, you accidentally concluded something about yourself that wasn't true, and we all do it, right? I'm not needed. I am shit. I am no one. I'm afraid. I'm trash. I'm ugly. I'm stupid. You accidentally conclude something that is not true, and that thing becomes the source of your reality. Your entire reality begins to create itself around that. The little kid, for example, think about it in this way. That little kid has the world coming like this. And here you are, happy smiley face, but you've built a lens, a filter called I don't fit in, or whatever it is. I'm not enough. And that filter changes everything that comes in, gets blended and blurred and shifted. And the problem is if you don't know what that is, if you don't know, if you don't understand it, then it becomes this. The reality that you are living is shaped by the fundamental misperception. The fundamental misperception creates the barrier that you have been experiencing in your life. It is the barrier. It is the thing that is stopping you. So what we have to do is first understand the fundamental misperception. Once you see that, then you start to see, the drunk monkey actually is the CIA for the fundamental misperception. It's going to protect the fundamental misperception. It's going to make sure the fundamental misperception is true. It's going to avoid the fundamental misperception at all costs. Do you get that? By living life like I am nothing, the drunk monkey starts to prove I'm not nothing, I'm someone. And when you declare you are someone, what exists in the background? I am nothing. I am nothing is the source of you saying, look at me, right? Jenna's is, I'm afraid, right? So if you haven't had a chance to experience Jenna full blown, you will see that Jenna is anything but afraid, right? Jenna is like this at all times. What are we going to do? Let's go. I'm a yes. Now, what happens there is it actually constructs a reality that doesn't support you. Because if she is trying to defend her position that she is not afraid, it's always reinforcing that she is. So what we have to do is become aware of this. Then we have to become aware of the functioning, the procedure with which the mind will defend this and try to make it not true, simultaneously making it true. Then what we're going to do is we're going to build structure around that. And then everyone just look around at the people around you and just say, hello, structure. Here's some structure around you. Structure is made up of accountability. It's made up of procedure, process, system. It's made up of group. Structure. It's made up of the way that people listen to you. That's your structure. What we're going to work on in our structure is shifting our perspective. So we're going to see life in a different way. And the way that we know we're seeing life in a different way is we measure it on the scale of consciousness. We're constantly monitoring on the scale of consciousness where you are. The higher you go on the scale of consciousness, the more you see, really is what it comes down to. The more you have available to see. And then ultimately by doing that, you're going to change your reactions to things. So stuff will happen, and you will no longer react the same way because you see that it was the fundamental misperception that fundamentally misperceived the situation. You see that it was the drunk monkey that was reacting. You now have this structure all around you that doesn't allow you to react and go back into your old ways. You've shifted your perspective. Now you change your reaction, and what does that change? That changes your action. Your action changes when you shift your perspective and change your reaction. And this, my friends, is the formula. I've been to everything you can imagine. I have done as much work as probably anyone out there in the world. Maybe there's a few that have done more than me. But I have been on a mad, mad search, a hunt to figure out how the hell do I express this infinite potential within me, because I feel so thwarted by the reality that I've been living. And what I've discovered is that there is a system to making it happen. And thank God I'm a child of Mike Ferry, and I'm committed to making everything simple and making everything a system. Because I think that ultimately I can teach this system to millions and millions and millions of people worldwide and do it in a way that is elegant and effortless and easy for people to understand, and that anybody can take it on. Now,